Our next speaker, Jonathan Granoff, is a leader amongst leaders. As president of the Global Security Institute, and co-chair of the American Bars Association's Committee on Arms Control and National Security, Jonathan works tirelessly as an international peace advocate and spiritual activist. He lectures all around the world, connecting the dots between social, civic, and spiritual development to reduce the profound threat to our world that continues to be posed by nuclear weapons. And his dedication continues to inspire the possibility of a peaceful world in which love is the ultimate nuclear power. Please welcome Jonathan.
May God's peace clear us of our own vision so that we know that God alone is the one who sees through us, and that through which we see is His, and that which we see is His, so that the division between ourselves and that one power of love, the source of infinite possibility, the sole and singular guide of every atom in the universe, would guide our intentions and fill us with the attributes of beauty and love and peace that draw us deeper into fulfilling that reality that the human being lives in God and God lives in every human being. Amen. Well, the theme is vision and possibility. So I just wanted, I thought that vision, in a way, is what precedes all movement. And all movement is dependent on our deepest intention. So the first place our vision needs to turn toward is our intention. So vision, of course, depends on the foundation of intention. In whatever we do, it's setting our intention correctly. And we are gathering here for common ground. For what is our common ground? And it turns out that our common ground is both, as human beings, both the bottom line and the infinite possibility, because that's what it means to be fully human. And there's very few places where this common aspect of every human being is set forward. So the bottom line, the real bottom line is, we are all made of earth. And we are like completely forgetful of what we're made of. We completely forget every day that we're going to have to give these forms back to the earth. And we're made out of water. And we completely forget that at a certain point we're going to have to give the water back to the water. We're like bubbles on the ocean, thinking we're independent of the whole ocean. And we're made out of air. And the air is not, it's not Andrea's air and Jonathan's air. It's air. And it doesn't become your air when you breathe it in. It's just air. And the energy of fire is not yours. But we share this. We share these elements. It is the bottom line. You can't get out of that. This is a reality. And the bottom line forms itself into a form that is your rental car. For a short period of time. And then you have to return the rental car. to the bottom line agency. And we identify with the color of the rental car. And we think this is what we actually are. We identify with the places the car has gone and the things that it's seen, the experience that it's had. And we become so attached to the rental car. But you're not the rental car. You might be in the rental car. And again, some of us here might not always be inside the And you might be claiming to drive the rental car. But some of us here might know there's another driver inside the car. And both are true, of course. That, of course, is the paradox of spirituality. It's the realization that you are responsible for your intentions, for every movement of every thought, of every atom, every act, every single moment of your breath, and your moments of life are measured. And you make an estimate of it, and you say, this life is a gift. This moment is precious and important, and it is not mine to squander. It is extremely valuable, and my life that I've been given is extremely valuable, and the lives of every other being are extremely valuable. And everything I do is really, really significant and important, that it's not just a play signifying nothing. Your life has tremendous meaning, and you would be held to account for it. And you have to put that note in your pocket and never forget it. And then you need another note that says, you're nothing! You can't make anything happen. You can't breathe. Your own awareness doesn't come from yourself. How do you see? How does it work? Where did memory go? Where did yesterday go? Where's tomorrow? Where did it go? Just this moment, and this is so ephemeral. You have no control over the future. You don't know when your last breath will be. Not an atom in creation moves without the prime mover moving it. And you can do nothing. And all of your thoughts are but vanity and pride. You don't count at all. Give up. Surrender. Surrender. And then put that in your other pocket. You need one in this pocket that says you are the crown of creation. That is God looking through you in the way you might be looking through eyeglasses. That it is God looking through your brothers and sisters when you see them. That it is God animating the birds to fly. That it is God giving the sweet fragrance to the earth. That it is God, the great majesty of all being itself, causing bacteria in your intestines to balance out your metabolism, the lives within your life. That it is God giving you the capacity to be free and choose where you will go, and thus you are living inside of God, and God is living inside of you. And that every human being is indeed ultimately majestic. And you must put that in your pocket and not forget that vision without a form. And then you have to put in your other pocket another note that says, you are nothing! And the intellect cannot grasp this vision of knowing nothing, being empty of self, and being majestic and the crown of creation. The intellect cannot do this. The intellect cannot grasp common ground. It can only discuss it and at best point toward it. So the bottom line of common ground is, in a sense, quite mysterious. The elements that make up the bottom line, the earth that we will return to, it's quite mysterious. And the top of possibility is obviously far beyond human grasp. Far beyond human grasp. As in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a great book about vision and practical application of spirituality. Has everybody here read the Bhagavad Gita? Has anybody not read it? Has everybody here? I don't want anybody to be embarrassed if I ask. If you haven't read the Bhagavad Gita, and we're talking about Martin Luther King, we have to go back to Mahatma Gandhi. And Mahatma Gandhi rested his studies on the Gita. That was his Bible, so to speak. And my teacher, Baba Mahayadeen, said that the most beautiful of all the beautiful teachings can be found in that. So it contains the great authorities of wisdom, point to that book. And this idea of vision and possibility, the book is a great guidebook on this issue. I'm going to digress about Martin Luther King just for a moment because we're honoring him, so I don't want to forget that. I just want to take care of it and then go back to his teacher and the teaching that guided him. Well, Martin Luther King certainly had an idea about vision. And he set forward the perennial vision of the wise of all time in his Nobel Peace Prize acceptance speech, which I commend to everyone's attention, in which he talks about not accepting the inevitability of a downward spiral to nuclear Armageddon. That's the issue he talks about when he gets the Nobel Peace Prize. Not the war that was going on, not just the grave inequities of wealth, and not racism, but the nuclear threat. And then the reason he says that he knows that it's not inevitable is that he knows that the power of love is greater than the love of power. And that knowledge is not a knowledge of faith, but a knowledge of experience. That he had gained that experience by standing up to the love of power with the power of love and seeing transformation take place in this world, in this time. And that's what Mahatma Gandhi did too. And that is the point of vision and possibility. Is when you place your faith in the power of love, not in something you don't know. You stop believing in things you don't know. You stop believing in visions and dreams and illusions. And start believing in where the masters tell us to place faith, which is in the power of love, the power of compassion, the power of patience, the power of tolerance. Because the sources of those mysteries are egoless, open space, mysterious, and present at all times. And Tertullian in the 4th century came up with this great definition of faith to merge the emerging Christian franchise with the franchise of the Roman Empire. There's a franchise operations. Because there were people following in the footsteps of the Master Jesus at the time. And they weren't real keen on joining in the military empire of the Roman Empire, you know? And they were asking questions, which people tend to do who are awake. Like our brother who was speaking before, when he was in school. As he was waking up, he was asking questions. Tertullian said that the evidence of your faith is your capacity to believe in things that don't make any sense. What a great way of bringing stupid people under your control. Then it became a great way to keep people stupid. And that's why we have to honor people who help clear our vision and wake us up. And he didn't point to having faith in just a dream that he might have. And when he talked about his dream, you know, it wasn't really like a dream. It was a matter of expression. But he talked about having faith in, something you can and must experience. So I thought about how it's not just vision and possibility, it's vision and intention and responsibility. Because if you know that becoming human and putting forth human values in the human community is your responsibility, then it's not a possibility, it's a responsibility. It's what you have to do. It's what you have to do. So, and you can't look at it in terms of, is it practical? Will it work? Because being human and being true to yourself, that's it. That's the bottom line. You don't have to go beyond that. If you can do that, then that's doing what God wants you to do. Because God made you as yourself, not as somebody else. And then, as the Holy Prophet said, if you take one step toward God, God will take 10 steps toward you. And he also said that God said, I made creation because I wanted to be known. I was a secret treasure. That was God's description of himself. I was a secret treasure wanting to be known, and thus made creation. But we make these conceptions of the higher possibility. And we limit what might happen based on our conceptions. And our highest responsibility is to surrender that vision, to surrender the limitations that we place, to surrender the promissory note of the future, and take the cash in hand, which is always in the present, always in the present, always coming back to the present. So in the great scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, that informed Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King's teacher of nonviolence, of how to deal with vision and possibility. Imagine this situation. There's this young prince, and it's on the eve of a great battle. And on the other side in the battle are relatives, great teachers, people that he loves. And on his own side are his own family, of course, other people in his family, other teachers, people he loves. And he sees this clearly. And he turns to the manifestation of Vishnu, the unmanifest, who's manifesting as Krishna. And it's the intellect talking with wisdom. Understand it that way. It's the intellect understanding its entrapment in the world, calling on wisdom, the manifestation of God within, to give clarity. And he says to Krishna, whoa, I'm really trapped. If I go forward into battle, it's a sin. And I don't want to do this. I'll be killing people that I love. If I don't do this, I will be failing my responsibility as a prince in this community. What do I do? And Krishna, the voice of God, in a way, recalibrates his vision. The whole book is a recalibration of his vision and resets his purpose in life. And his purpose in his predicament is, what do I do? And it's really interesting because he doesn't actually answer the question. Krishna begins and essentially says, from my point of view, everyone's already eternal and everyone's already dead. Because that which dies and comes into manifestation is the rental car. It's not what they actually are. And you don't know who you are. You don't know where you came from. You don't know who's living in your car in the first place. It's a very radical, he smacks him right up front. It's like, whoa, I don't know who's alive inside of me. Has got to be the response that Arjuna is asking Krishna. Arjuna is the fellow asking the question. And he's asking Krishna this. Krishna immediately says to him, you think you're taking life. You think you're giving life. You don't know what life is. And then he proceeds to tell him the methods of discovering his own life. And he gives him Raja Yoga. Yoga means union. Raja Yoga, Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is throwing your heart into the devotion of God's love. Throwing yourself into love. Giving all responsibility, all rewards and losses to the divine. And doing selfless service. Karma Yoga. Helping others as one's own self. And Jnana Yoga. Asking the ultimate question, what is consciousness, who am I? And he proceeds to give him the particular technology of becoming human through these devotional spiritual practices. And ultimately, he then turns to him and says, Krishna, this is the light within him, the light of wisdom within all humanity. He says, look at me, and he appears as brighter than 70,000 suns. And then he turns to Arjuna, the aspirant, and says, thou art that. That is what it is to be fully realized as a human being. You are that. And all beings are that. And he says, he who sees himself as in all beings, and all beings in himself, sees he whose self is disciplined within discipline, who sees this oneness in all things, who sees me in all, and sees all in me. For him I am never lost, and he is never lost to me. And whoever reveres me and sees me abiding in all things, adopting this understanding of oneness, through abiding in all possible conditions, that disciplined human being forever abides within me. To see God in yourself and yourself in God, and God in all beings, that is the answer ultimately that he gives him. And from that perspective, as the Master Jesus says, with that kind of faith in that knowledge, faith in that power of love, faith in that power of nonviolence, faith in that, a mustard seed, that little bit of faith in that goes a very long way. And you never know where that's going to manifest. You never know where that's going to manifest. And it's always, if you dig in the historical circumstances, you find out that behind the good things that happen is that seed of real faith in one of the attributes of the divine. I had the privilege this last few years of representing the International Peace Bureau at the summits of the Nobel Peace Laureates. And because I actually don't know why. I've been privileged to be one of the people helping to draft the statement, which means I have to listen to all of the different voices and develop relationships. And it's a broad group of people. I mean, they've had everybody from the Dalai Lama to Lech Walesa. And culturally, they're really coming from different places. But they're all people who have placed their faith in the possibility of human qualities manifesting in history and leading to peace. And they are indeed ordinary people who have done extraordinary things. But really, it's the power of those attributes of God doing the extraordinary things. And what they've done is put their faith in using those. And it's real interesting to see really divergent people doing that. So there's two women who've been coming to these, Mairead Corrigan Maguire and Betty Williams, who were not noteworthy women in the late 1970s in Belfast, except for the fact they got fed up with the violence and they had people in their own families who got killed. And it was just enough. I mean, you lose your husband, you lose your children, you lose your sisters and brothers. It was just too much for them. One was Catholic, one was Protestant. They just got out, went door to door, and called other women and to come out and say to the men, enough of this. And since the day they did that, the killing went down 70% and never went up to the normal level, to the levels. Now, they did not offer a political solution because that wasn't their gift. Their gift was the act of faith in the vision that people could behave better. And they knew it was possible. And they knew they were responsible for that vision, and they went out and did that. Now, had they had the skills of lawyers or other skill sets, then they'd have another set of responsibility to deal with it at a political level. And I have a responsibility to close this in 3 minutes. I'll do my best. But they are regular people. And then, on the other end of this group, were people like Willem de Klerk. And Willem de Klerk, in a way, is somewhat of the hero, as much as Nelson Mandela, in bringing about the impossible based on the vision in South Africa. Because he secretly used to go to visit Nelson Mandela in his prison cell and plan out carefully how the transition could occur, because he knew it had to occur. But imagine, he knew that if his compatriots in his political party knew what he was doing, his life, there was no insurance policy that could have been issued. He was risking his life when he did that. And Nelson Mandela didn't have much choice. I mean, he was stuck in a jail cell. But de Klerk made a choice and did that. We all know Mandela's courage. We all know the power of forgiveness that prevented a bloodbath that manifested in him. People don't know the quiet fortitude and courage of de Klerk. I found out that it was the human interaction between Ronald Reagan, the right-wing ideologue, and the former head of the KGB, Mikhail Gorbachev, who met as human beings and realized that they actually liked each other. So Krishna says to Arjuna, wisdom says to the intellect, foolish men conceive me, the unmanifest, as having become manifest. They do not know my higher nature, everlasting and supreme. In other words, supreme, beyond manifestation, unchanging, in all beings, in all time, and the repository of all possibility. The repository of all possibility. So our common ground is to recognize with some sense of humility that regardless of what people believe, we need a place where people say, we accept you. Regardless of how far you've strayed from the path, how much you've forgotten, regardless of how hopeless you might think you are, we remind you. And regardless of how different you might be from us, we accept you. Now we need places that do that. Because if we don't set forward that common ground and remind people, if we don't do that, then surely the possibility of a world that works for everybody will not take place. Thus, we have a responsibility to do that. And we have a responsibility to follow the admonition of Martin Luther King to simply reject as inevitable the destruction. Because we know in our own lives that there is a power greater than the law of power, which is certainly an illusion when you see anybody get old. And God willing, we will all get to get old. And God willing, we will realize how powerless we are. And when you see people who have aged correctly, you see that their bodies just they can't fit in them anymore. You know, that you want to help them return the rental car. You want to ease them back into the garage. Because we know the power of love. I wanted to end this recounting a story of how I saw a human being manifest this, a great human being named Baba Mahayadin, my spiritual teacher, who was attacked by a man with a knife. He was attacked. I was there with him at his bedside, and he was sitting on his bed, and this man came in a state of absolute intoxication of hatred. It's absolute intoxication of hatred. And I was sitting there, and I could have hit this guy with a sucker punch really easily. Wouldn't have ever seen it. I was in Sri Lanka. It was 1975. There was a corrugated steel roof and a cement floor, and just a room about the size of this place, and all kinds of people would come. This little old man just sat on his bed and demonstrated the unity of consciousness through the mystery of love. And on the other side, there was a little wall. On the other side was a goat, a deer that had followed him out of the forest, some turkeys, dogs, cats, like the peaceable kingdom. He was sitting there, and this man had this knife. It was like a cross between a machete and a scimitar. It was about this long and curved. And he raised it, and this little old man that I was studying with, this great sage, leaned back and tilted his neck and said, "My brother, will the peace your soul is seeking come if you kill me?" And I saw, because he didn't do miracles. He wasn't big on doing miracles. He said the miracle is knowing yourself. But at this time I saw this miracle, and I saw how the atoms that hold earth and air and fire and our bodies in the midst of earth and air scintillate with God's infusion of love. And the vibration in the room was like, and this man collapsed like a puppet having its strings cut. And his head fell on the bed, and Baba stroked his head and said, "Go clean yourself and come back this evening." That moment when he faced death with, "My brother, how can I help you?" That's the human possibility. And that to get that love means to give up the arrogance of the I. And the nature of that love, and the most beautiful part of it is that it frees us from that egocentric burden and lets us let go. So my arrogance in wanting to show that is a kind of theft of the reality that the wise remind us of, which is God is God. And when we let go, and we let God, and only then do we get to fall in love. May God give us the humility, the courage, the sense of dignity, and the freedom from pride, the patience and the tolerance to have our vision be clear and fulfill the possibility of becoming fully human. May that realization be the common ground of humanity for this next moment and next moment. Amen.